What if the first people to walk the jungles and coastlines of the Riviera Maya weren't Maya at all? What if the region's earliest settlers came from unexpected directions long before pyramids rose and cities thrived? For decades, archaeologists believed the Yucatan Peninsula had a fairly straightforward history of occupation, but now ancient DNA is turning that idea upside down. So who really were the first to call this tropical region home, and how did they shape the people we now call the Maya? Before we start, I'm on a road to get 1,000 subscribers as a small channel. If you want to help me, please subscribe. Let's unravel this mystery together. Long before tourists flocked to Tulum and Cancun, the Riviera Maya was a vast and wild landscape of limestone plains, underground rivers, and coastal forests. During the last ice age, sea levels were lower, exposing more land along the Caribbean shore and turning the region into a crucial corridor for human movement. Ancient peoples would have seen the cenotes, not just as water sources, but as sacred gateways. For years, researchers believed the area was settled by local hunter-gatherers who slowly developed into the Maya. The story seemed neat. Coastal foragers became sedentary villagers, then complex city builders, but this version relied mostly on pottery styles, tools, and burial customs. The biological story remained untold. Who were these early people genetically? Were they truly the ancestors of the classic Maya? Or was the region settled more than once by different groups arriving from different directions? Only ancient DNA could start to answer that. Studying ancient DNA in the Yucatan is a challenge unlike most. The region's porous limestone and humid climate make it one of the worst environments for preserving genetic material. Bones decay fast and DNA breaks down into microscopic fragments. For years, this meant the biological origins of the Riviera Maya's earliest inhabitants remained a mystery. But recent breakthroughs changed that. Using a method called hybridization capture, scientists can now fish out tiny pieces of ancient DNA by targeting specific genetic markers, known as SNPs, that vary between populations. Even heavily degraded samples like those pulled from underwater cenotes or dry caves can sometimes yield enough data to map ancestry. It's not easy. Each successful genome is a triumph of both technology and patience. But thanks to these methods, researchers are finally getting a glimpse into who lived in the region thousands of years before the Maya flourished. And what they're finding is surprising. Some of the most important clues to the Riviera Maya's ancient population lie not in pyramids, but in caves. In 2007, divers exploring a cenote called Hoyo Negro made a breathtaking discovery. A teenage girl's skeleton, nearly 13,000 years old, resting in a submerged chamber named Naya. Her remains became one of the oldest and most complete skeletons ever found in the Americas. Her skull, teeth, and bones hinted at distant ancestry, and her DNA would later confirm it. Other sites like Tulum Cave, Xcaret, and Actun Tunichil reveal similar early remains, many of them deposited in sacred or ceremonial contexts. Meanwhile, pre-Maya villages dating to around 2000–1000 BC show evidence of farming, pottery, and permanent settlement. For a long time, archaeologists believed these two layers, hunter-gatherer cave burials and early farming villages, were part of the same population, evolving over time. But the ancient DNA is now showing they may have belonged to very different groups. When scientists analyzed the DNA of individuals like Naya and others from early Yucatan sites, they found something unexpected. Using principal components analysis, or PCA, which clusters individuals by genetic similarity, they discovered that these early people didn't fall neatly into the same ancestry as later Maya populations. Instead, their DNA aligned more closely with ancient populations from farther south, possibly Central America or even the Pacific side of southern Mexico. Even more curiously, some genetic patterns hinted at connections to ancient Siberian populations, similar to other early North Americans, but with local twists. This mixture of signals suggests that the Yucatan wasn't just settled once. It was part of a much larger, complex migration story. People may have arrived in waves, some moving up from the south, others coming in from different coastal routes. These findings challenge the idea that the Maya developed in isolation. Instead, the Riviera Maya was already diverse from the very beginning. The ancient DNA tells a story of not one, but two distinct migration waves into the Riviera Maya. The first wave dates back over 10,000 years, coastal hunter-gatherers who arrived during the Pleistocene. These early people used shorelines and freshwater cenotes to survive in a hot, changing landscape. Their remains, like Naya's, show strong links to early Native American lineages with distant Asian ancestry, consistent with the earliest settlers of the Americas. Then, around 5,600 years ago, a second wave arrived, migrants from southern Mexico or Central America. These groups brought with them something transformative, early forms of maize farming, pottery, and settled village life. Their DNA patterns align more closely with populations from Chiapas, Guatemala, and beyond. These weren't just new technologies, they represented a new people with different origins. For centuries, both groups may have lived in overlapping spaces, but they left distinct marks in the archaeological and genetic record. The Maya, it turns out, weren't born in a vacuum. Despite occupying the same region over time, the two migration waves into the Riviera Maya show surprisingly little genetic mixing. The hunter-gatherers of the Pleistocene and the early farming communities that arrived millennia later appear to have remained largely separate. Ancient genomes from cenote burials and early village sites cluster into distinct lineages. This suggests that, rather than blending into a single population, these groups may have coexisted with minimal interaction, perhaps living in different ecological zones or maintaining strong cultural boundaries. It's a rare pattern in human history. Two communities side by side, yet genetically and culturally apart for generations. To dig even deeper, researchers examined the maternal and paternal lineages found in ancient remains. Mitochondrial DNA inherited through the mother revealed haplogroups A, C, and D, lineages commonly found among early Mesoamerican and Native American populations. But when they looked at the Y chromosome passed down through fathers, they saw even more variation. Some lineages matched those typical of Central American farming communities, while others echoed older hunter-gatherer populations. This genetic contrast between maternal and paternal lines hints at different migration patterns for men and women, perhaps reflecting marriage customs, social structures, or population replacements. The past, it turns out, was rarely simple. These findings challenge long-held ideas about how Maya civilization began. Rather than a slow, linear evolution from local hunter-gatherers into city-building agriculturalists, the DNA tells a more dynamic story, one of layered migration and cultural fusion. The second wave of migrants who brought farming and permanent settlements appear to have played a key role in laying the foundations of early Maya society. Their ancestry aligns with groups from Central America and southern Mexico, suggesting that the Maya may have inherited both genetic and cultural traits from multiple sources. Even the earliest temples and ritual practices in the region may reflect a blend of traditions carried by different populations. This reshapes the narrative. The Riviera Maya was not a quiet origin point, but a bustling crossroads. It absorbed waves of people, technologies, and beliefs. And the Maya emerged not from isolation, but from centuries of interaction, adaptation, and innovation fueled by migration. Even with these breakthroughs, much of the Riviera Maya's genetic history remains untold. Many cave and cenote sites are still unexplored, and each new excavation could add a critical piece to the puzzle. Scientists also want to trace the spread of maize, one of Mesoamerica's defining crops, to see how it moved alongside these ancient migrants. And then there are the climatic shifts, cultural boundaries, and forgotten trade routes that may have shaped who met whom and when. The genetic evidence so far hints at a more tangled past than we ever imagined. But we're only just beginning to listen to its story. The Riviera Maya wasn't settled by a single group, nor was it a quiet cradle of civilization. It was a meeting place, a stage where waves of people arrived, lived, and sometimes passed without blending. Ancient DNA has revealed that the roots of the Maya run deeper and spread wider than we thought. So what other forgotten migrations lie beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered? Let me know what you think in the comments. If you enjoyed this deep dive into hidden histories, check out the Patreon, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, stay curious, stay questioning,